I promise at the time between me covering Welcome to the Circus and now covering Times Like These was in no way intentional. I guess I just had a lot come up. There's a lot of stuff that I cover on this channel that, especially within the music scene, I've been trying to make my way for many different groups as well, that, some artists kind of, unfortunately, they might be your favorites. I mean, to throw no shade in this way to Five Finger Death Punch at all. But some groups perhaps get shoved aside a bit in regards to scheduling. And Five Finger Death Punch, unfortunately, even though they're one of my favorites, I did unintentionally put them off. And I kind of resent myself for it, because I'm like, again, based on the first 3 tracks, Afterlife is a very promising album. I've been a big fan of Five Finger Death Punch for a while, have loved their offerings, and this new album has not disappointed in any way. It's coming off nicely as well from F8, which is such a fabulous release. I've been really ecstatic to hear more. And this single released in anticipation of the album. At this point, I've actually bought it. It's sitting on my phone. I have yet to listen to it, as well as this track. Again, I've been avoiding it specifically when I've gone and listened to the free tracks I've heard thus far, being Afterlife, IOU, and Welcome to the Circus, all of which are great listens. But I have to keep skipping over Times Like These whenever I shuffle my library of Five Finger Death Punch. I'm like, I haven't covered it yet. Or really any of the other tracks thus far. I'm probably not going to be able to do an entire album coverage for Afterlife like I've done for some other releases. Again, I rarely do full album releases. It depends on my schedule and just how much I have to do, and I'm very behind in work, as I'm sure many of you are aware. But I'm trying to reprioritize my interests back to groups I should have wrapped up with like a long time ago. And Five Finger Death Punch, it was definitely an incomplete run. So I'm going to go ahead and cue up this last song for at least what I'm covering thus far. Well, I've actually got another video coming for one of the tracks I covered previously in regards to their music videos. There was something special that released for Welcome to the Circus. It'll be documented in another video. But depending on this track in part. But Times Like These, I'm going to go ahead and cue up this track. I can finish my run of covering the singles of Afterlife and getting a good impression of the album overall, which still, again, thus far has been solid in my opinion. And maybe for you, this is the first introduction to Five Finger Death Punch. Big metal band, like mega popular, understandably so. They're extremely talented, love their work, and I hope this is a serviceable introduction to you to what I've experienced thus far with this album. It's just been solid all around in single releases. But in this case, we also have a music video to go off of. So rather than in the past with the lyric videos, some of which I didn't cover, well, I've included them in the videos, but I didn't cover them when I was physically covering the content and putting that into the recording. So those videos were sort of like new to me, even when I went back to go and to edit everything, get it ready for publication. But in this case, we have a music video. So bit different. It's not a lyric video, I believe. So it's this one's definitely fresh, and it's similar to Welcome to the Circus. Again, that'll be incoming on a separate video where I cover the music video for that release as well. And for those of you who perhaps are not familiarized with music reactions of this channel, which I love to do, music for me is a favorite art form. I've wanted to bring it more as a mainstay here in the presence of other entertainment ventures of what I've included, typically, those being, let's say, for example, cinema, television, stuff like that. Music, I've always wanted to bring in at a deeper emphasis. And Five Finger Death Punch, I'm very happy to give them a spotlight. They certainly deserve it. Let's go ahead and take a look at this music video. And it's a benefit for you, to those audience members out there who perhaps like to read along with the track as we go forward and you hear it for yourself. I will be superimposing the lyrics as well. If they're not included in the music video, I doubt it. But those will be available to you in the bottom of the screen, and they'll, follow along and track with the song as we go forward. Anyway, Times Like These. Let me go ahead and cue this up. I can't wait to get an introduction. Yeah, they were saying they were going to have more of a conceptual vibe with this. I was reading up on that in interviews. I didn't realize that going forward in terms of coverage. I like conceptual releases quite a bit. Bit apocalyptic, doomsday, sci-fi bend. 2042 is a popular year to cite. I mean, Battlefield come to mind. Feels very realistic to sci-fi mutterings. To some extent fictional as well, but you can look at headlines and like map out a storyline for yourself. Oh, this is one of their softer songs. Okay. Soft entrance, I like it. They do mix too, but I think they're mostly known again for the aggressive rock or metal.
It's nights like this under a harvest moon. It came too fast and it's gone too soon. A wilted rose and a frozen tomb. A memory for the wind. Anyways, anybody notice that the
That's good. I like the transition there with the vocals from verse to verse. It was just smooth.
The sirens calling. Am I the only one who feels the pain? It's times like these when the sorrow shadows all the laughter. Times like
I feel like in part the song is kind of testing Ivan's range, just slightly. Maybe just the variance, but it does feel a bit distinct. I mean, there's been plenty of like ballads, softer songs in the past, but it sounds slightly different.
I took one in the morning and one at night. A fire still burns, but it's cold inside. It's all that I can do. Anyway, no one wants to talk about the end is coming. Pointing fingers, handing out the blame. If I gave you answers to all your questions, could you change or would you stay the same? 'Cause it's times like these when left is right and forward's back.
If sci-fi is a favorite genre for you, then you're typical of some of these themes that are present in the video. It's good though. It's serviceable. Okay, that's an interesting shift. Didn't expect that in the key. Good transition back. That worked really well, that sustained note. Beautiful structure. Didn't feel abrupt or like it emphasized pause at all. It just felt so smooth, natural. So is this part one, then part two? Yep, to be continued. That's next. I've already got that one lined up. Okay, that's hilarious. Solid ballad number. I mean, again, they've done a shift. I mean, for the most part, I've said, we knew in the past, let's say in consideration of Afterlife and IOU, I did feel those tracks, while in, you know, the intensity that's known for with Five Finger Death Punch, Welcome to the Circus really got me in regard to its just the origin of it as well. It had this like more eerie interlude. I mean, the lyric video is interesting enough as well, with what they conceptualized there. I mean, this is a bit more of a, I'd say, story driven. It's a little more realistic and focused than perhaps the abstract vision of what was in the lyric videos, although it's very similar, at least in the color aesthetics and the world building overall, even though maybe some of the elements slightly differ. But that track just really hit the ground running. That was like familiar Five Finger Death Punch to me in regard to the staple, the louder, the more aggressive. That's what I love. But, you know, their softer songs are very sweet too. Like off their last release, What's a song called? Oh, I always forget it. Darkness Settles In, I think that's the name. That one really got me. I love that. I mean, the lyrics for that song are fabulous too. But they've done softer songs that have really appealed to me. Again, I have varied tastes in regard to my appreciation for metal, right? I do prefer, again, the more aggressive, but sometimes I, might like a softer song or two. Times Like These is, I think, a sweet entry. I mean, it's, again, very diverse switch from what we're familiarized with for the mainstay of the album, at the very least with the 3 singles. In tone, it's a very smooth song. I mean, it has great transitions, though. That one lingering note to carry over again where it changed key and then to revert back to the origin of the piece, that worked so well. That is seamless. It really, I mean, that's like one element to pick out, but that was so perfect. It really surprised me. But that song, I think, at least in my view, tested Ivan's range slightly. I mean, he had to climb and variate, shift around quite a bit, versus maybe maintaining a more sustained key. Let's say, for example, like, again, to bring it to mind, Darkness Settles In. That was more, I think, streamlined in its focus. And what it was asking Ivan to lend in regard to a vocal consideration or contribution. But that song's really good. It's I think, a serviceable entry, a good one. And the song itself, from a lyrical perspective, is also very engaging. I feel it, even though it, again, has a futuristic twist, and it might be very typical in what you're familiarized with in the sci-fi scene, if you follow a lot of science fiction, doomsday apocalyptic set media, it has that approach that might come across as very familiar to you. So that, of course, gives you a bit of, I guess, a relatability in its entrance way, rather than it's something too abstract or fresh to the point of disillusionment. I feel that the entrance here, again, the familiarity of it works, in part because of the relatable theming of the lyrics. I mean, I can't help but look at this and wonder perhaps if this album anyways is meant to reflect the state of the world we presently live in. Even if, again, maybe it's from a more abstract... I haven't read into interviews to understand as much the baseline intention of the album overall, or, the interpretations of the track bit by bit from the band's perspective, but it'd be fascinating, at the very least, to gauge, what their thoughts were going in the motivation of each individual's track's writing. Because, I mean, Afterlife, IOU, Welcome to the Circus, I think, is the more triumphant of those 3, at least for me. Even though, again, all 3 of them in total have been great. But this song, I mean, the verses are very strong here, and again, it gives me this feeling that this is written specifically for all of us living in the world that we currently live in, and maybe just the climate of the culture overall these days. I mean, we might find ourselves, to whatever extreme it might be, you might just look at the way, normal life proceeds, or the way society at sometimes seems, crazy. I mean, we live in a world that just seems like any day it could splinter apart for however you want to explain that away. You could say, I'm not going to try to go into this point in specifically because I, again, think there's multiple paths to interpretation. I don't necessarily want to specify my focus on just one. You could say, politics. You could say just culture overall. You could say just maybe in your local community. There seems to be just mass upheaval in the world right now. And however you might interpret that, I think is relevant as well. You might just say it, from an observational standpoint. You might look at it from a moral standpoint, or where your convictions might lie. You might see it from a spiritual standpoint. I'm a Christian. I certainly have that interpretation myself. I'd say for me, it's actually quite a mixture of all those views. There's not necessarily one in focus. I'm, I guess, a bit more democratic in the way that I interpret the madness, it seems, that's pervaded the world today. But this track has an approachability to it that perhaps, however you want to interpret it, you can, and the energy of the track fits. Like, I don't know, just extracting, let's say, a couple lines. Anybody notice the sky is falling to be almost happy in the rain? It's times like these when the sorrow shadows all the laughter. That's such a potent... I mean, even beyond just maybe the way, like, mass society is, this could be very personalized. I mean, I'm not going to try to speak again for the intentions of the group, or for anybody in particular who's maybe dealt with something that would have a better understanding of what I don't. But maybe you're in a dark season of life, to speak broadly. Maybe you've met some obstacle that you feel like, whatever it might be. It might be, an illness. It might be the death of a loved one. It might be just a state of, your life, your view of yourself, of your future. I mean, again, there's so many ways you could interpret this song, which I think is great because it gives it mass appeal and relevance to everybody's life, in whatever way that you find it satisfactory to apply it for yourself. Maybe as an agent of catharsis. I mean, music really is such a beneficial art form, and that it really can help people in especially the toughest of times, however it needs to. It has a varied approach, and I love this art form so much. Yeah, again, I just read this chorus. It has that broad appeal. No one wants to talk about the end is coming, pointing finger. I mean, this feels like a particular point to society, like pointing fingers, handling out the blame. If I gave you answers to all your questions, could you change or would you stay the same? I mean, I think about like the end is coming. It immediately draws like, societal, cultural, or political commentary to mind. If that's, we point fingers at everybody, right? In the disaster state that the world in many ways seems to be in. Again, however we interpret that, not to go specific or on specific points with my judgment. I find the track very good, very refreshing. I mean, it's a beautiful piece of lyric writing, in my opinion. It definitely resonates in regard to a very bleak yet encouraging destination. Or actually, let me explain this another way. A brief circumstance with a encouraging destination in mind. It has that cathartic nature to it that I find so appealing in music. And the tune itself is a beautiful compliment. Again, that transition towards the end really worked for me. To bring it back into the original key, I thought that was excellent. And the video, it's a fun introduction, I guess, to part 2, which is incoming with Welcome to the Circus. Are there future parts after that? I don't know. I mean, we're about to change tone quite a bit in the next video when I cover that song, a music video in particular. But times like these, that's good. It's a song I'll definitely listen to more in the future, now that I don't have to keep skipping over it every time to be able to give a fresh take. And I'm at least, better late than never. Although, again, that hiatus I took from covering Five Finger Death Punch was not intentional by any means. What are your guys' thoughts, though, with Five Finger Death Punch? Maybe for you, again, this is a first impression, with not just the band, but maybe, well, of course, of times like these, I'm sure, but maybe with the band as a whole. I'd love to hear your thoughts down below, as well as for those of you who are longtime Five Finger Death Punch fans. Maybe you've come to this track already in the time that I'm late to the ball on everything, but that's for sure. But in the time since me covering the last couple of singles on this, I'm sure you've gotten around to hearing this track for yourself. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are on it down below. Again, I think it's a great, sweeter song. It's a drastic shift from the ever-existent singles thus far that we've had, but it's familiar with Five Finger Death Punch. I love it just the same. It's excellent. Thank you so much for watching this video. Before you bounce, feel free to drop a like and comment, subscribe to this channel with a ding on the bell, and share this video with your friends. And consider checking out the description here. There you'll find links to my other channels, as well as addresses to my other social media accounts and ways you can help support my work if you feel so inclined. May God bless you, and looking forward to when our paths cross again.